Anyone have a preference for starting?
No, we have like no format whatsoever. We just go.
Yeah, I figured you want to introduce Xeno.
Oh, that happens. I mean, that's a thing that's gonna happen. No, we can. We're already going. We're already going.
Part of me was like, "Welcome to this week's episode of TwoStarCast."
No. We don't do that. We don't do that
here.
We just start rambling and then stop after approximately an hour.
So as you can probably tell, sweet listeners, dear listeners, we have a guest this week, the friend of the channel, Xenogelion.
Yo.
Hi, Drew.
Yo.
How's it going?
I've been awake for like an hour and 15 minutes.
Nice.
I'm an idiot and decide, hey, do you know what's a really good idea? Let's just watch anime till 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's fine. Which ones?
We finished Berserk last night.
Oh, finally!
And like, so so we do it in batches and things, and this session was like the last. Was it 6 or 7 episodes?
Oh,
and
that's, yeah, that's the good stuff.
And it's just like that is peak Berserk for me. Like it ends on like, oh my god, what did I just see?
So you basically watch the part where it turns into the other show.
Yes, basically, yeah. And
it's it's the From Dusk Till Dawn moment of the show, I guess, where it's like you thought that this is what Berserk was, but no, now it's this.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it's amazing how like I love stories where it's like a story wrapped inside another story. Like one of my favorite ever film is Predator, right? Simply because of the whole you've got like these commandos that are going in and they're like doing a mission and things, but while that's happening, you've got this alien that's hunting down what's called the Marines and things. And I just love that about the narrative. It's a very simple mechanic that so few stories actually utilize, right?
Yeah, it's like the big strong men that are like, I'm so manly, I'm so good, and I'm just gonna shoot up the forest with my machine gun. Yeah. And then they just get like all of them get fucked up so hard because
yeah, that's exactly it.
But it's funny because like I've had a discussion. I don't remember who I had the discussion with. Was it Xeno? I don't know. But about movies or like media that just genre switches and somewhere in the middle just becomes something else. And I always think that's like a cool trope that you don't see all that often. Some examples: Titanic is a movie that completely switches genres in the middle of the movie. From Dusk Till Dawn, obviously a good example as well.
Have I ever told you that when I first saw From Dusk Till Dawn that this was before the internet and all of that, right? Or maybe the internet was around, but you didn't look it up. But I just looked. You had these TV guides, right? And you read them, and it said it was a gangster road movie or a gangster road trip movie. And so I was like, I
love it.
I was like, I could watch a gangster road trip movie, and I was so confused when all of a sudden there was vampires. Like I literally went in blind because I was lied to essentially, and I was like, what is this?
I also went in blind for that movie. I did not know about the twist in advance. But yeah, Predator, favorite movie of all time.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
What?
It's fucking brilliant.
Oh, Xenos. I was like, I know what your favorite movie of all time is, and it's not Predator. No,
it's Blade Runner.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's a fucking brilliant movie. I love that movie
It is. And I was so hesitant to the sequel, Blade Runner 2049 or whatever it's called, because Blade Runner was already my favorite movie, and I'm of the opinion that like there are certain movies that like do not need a sequel. I was like, no, Blade Runner is perfect. It's the perfect movie. Don't diminish it by trying to like tack something else onto it. This movie does not need a sequel. That was like my very strong opinion.
And he was talking my ear off about this for a very long time. Yeah. He was ranting.
So I actually didn't see the movie when it premiered because I was like, no, I'm going to boycott this. I hate everything about this idea. And then the reviews came in and everyone was like, oh, this is a work of art. Oh, this is fantastic. And then like I was like, oh, Was I wrong about this? Do I have to see this? So we did go and see it while it was still playing in cinemas, which I'm very happy about because this is absolutely like the cinema type movie. It's super enhanced by watching it like on a big screen with like a big huge surround system because the audio soundscapes are just massive. And I watched it and we exited the cinema and we were like walking down the street and I was like, oh, this is better than the original.
I disagree with you entirely. I think it like really ruins the original.
No,
because like the whole thing about the end of the first movie was a what if, right? Because there was so many different endings. There's so many different ways to interpret the ending of the original movie.
Yeah,
was Deckard a replicant, right?
But they kept the what if.
It's not answered.
No, I disagree. I think it is answered because, like, in the sequel, right?
Yeah.
You know Deckard's not a replicant. He's a human.
No.
How? No.
No, it's not answered.
Because I'm pretty sure. Well, I mean.
It's super not answered. They kept it ambiguous in the sequel as well.
They never answered the question, so I went out of it and I'm like, that's one of the things we talked about. I was like, so is Deckard a replicant or not? Still don't know.
Well, the big thing about the replicants was the fact that they would die after 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
but this wasn't. They said in the first movie that they made like an updated like. That's not because all of them die. It's like there's a thing in there that you can turn off, or I don't know. Like if you make them right.
Well, that was the thing about Roy Batty, like his character, that like he knew that he only had like a 5-year lifespan and was trying to fight against it, and the person who made the replicants, whatever his name was, he was like, no, you can't undo it. It's like this model of replicant is going to have a 5-year lifespan. Period.
But did have models that weren't like that.
Yes, the argument being that Deckard is not a Nexus 6. He's a different model of replicant that does not have a lowered lifespan, would be the idea. Which they still don't answer. And even Deckard in the sequel, it's like they have a talk about it. And basically he doesn't care. He's not interested in finding out the answer if he is one or not.
I just remember like watching that movie. Oh god, the problem is like I have remnants of feelings, and I'm trying to remember what the feelings meant. I think the problem. I think I would have liked it if 2049 just didn't involve any of the characters of the original movie.
Maybe. I mean, they tried to keep Deckard like sort of a secret for the longest time, but then. They realized that like people weren't getting hyped about the movie, so they started putting him in the posters. Well, he was supposed to be a bit of a surprise when he showed up, like in the last third of the movie. But no, it's got so many cool themes. It's got stuff about like the cycle of abuse, how you now see how replicants are treating AIs, which is sort of like
don't make me talk about David Cage.
No, but it connects with the whole idea of like you can see themes of that in like immigration, where it's like you have first generation immigrants who are treated like shit, and then after a while like they're integrated into society and it's been normalized, and now everyone's used to them being here, and now a new group of immigrants come, and you see like the first group of immigrants start treating the second group of immigrants like shit because now we're the in group and now you're the outsiders and now we have to protect what we've got, and you see that in, for example, the dynamic between replicants and AI in Blade Runner 2049, which I thought was like a really poignant political point that they managed to squeeze into that movie without sort of like taking away from the narrative that the movie was presenting in other ways as well. It's a masterpiece. Damn it, it's a great movie.
Okay, I honestly, it's been so long since I've seen it, I can't possibly debate any specifics of it. But I remember enjoying it. If we're talking about remembering feelings we had about it, and I was like, I liked it.
I think I'm gonna have to rewatch both. I'm just gonna have to come back to this, but
I think it helped that we watched the original like right before it in preparation. I remember doing that. So we watched them kind of like in sequence.
Had you seen the original before, or was that like me forcing you to watch the original before you were allowed to see the sequel?
I think it was that.
Yeah. But you kind of have to. You kind of have to. There are some media that where it's like, no, you're not allowed to see this unless you first watched these 20 hours of previous Evangelion material. I don't.
No.
No.
But I mean, one I will say, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. Is I love how I tell people I am busy today. Don't message me. And what do? They do exactly that. So anyway, what was I saying? The rabbit hole I don't want to spend too long going down. Is the Serenity movie. You can't watch the Serenity movie without watching Firefly first, because it makes no fucking sense, right?
Well, I haven't watched the movie because there is things happen in the movie that I'm trying to pretend don't happen. So,
see, I haven't watched either. I'm not like into the whole Firefly thing.
Isn't the thing in the Serenity movie that Wash dies?
No.
Oh, then there's another movie.
That never happens. But just for the sake of protecting innocence, you should never watch the movie. But it's a bad movie. It's a very, very bad movie. You should never watch the movie. But no, Wash lives forever.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go. That's excellent.
Exactly.
So speaking about living forever, how did you feel about the ending to Berserk?
I want to go read it now. I really want to go read it.
That's the thing, right? Because this is one of those animes where it's like, how could you have not done a second season? How can you end it on this note?
No,
because
I was gonna say the ending of Berserk is just it's
dark
in the story.
Yeah,
but it's not an ending.
No, but it's like episode 1 takes place I don't know, 5 years into the future or something. Mm-hmm. And then end of episode 1 is like, okay, back we jump back in time to 5 years and let's see how we ended up here. So he has like, he's lost an arm and he's blind on one eye and he's hunting for Griffith and all of that, but you don't know why. And then the end is
know why.
you know why, but you don't know how he got out of that. You don't know how he survived that situation.
But it's also like, in these movies, like for example, at the start of like what's the Disney movie with the llama called again? The Emperor's New Groove. He's Disney? Like, you see him like shivering in the forest and it's raining. He's like, you're probably wondering how I got here, right? And it's the trope, and then you go back to the start, and then you see the first half, and that's how you got there. And how I feel about the Berserk anime is that they kind of never made the second half of the story about
they should
the
have
resolution,
had that.
Right?
So they should have had that in the first episode, where it's like they do the LP or like just the skipping sound. It's like, bzzzt.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got into this.
Exactly. That's kind of what's happening in my mind, and then you get that story, and then it's like, okay, I have the setup. Where's the resolution?
So the frustration is that they did which was subsequent series afterwards, which is like commonly referred to as Berserk 2016 and Berserk 2017. I have not seen either of those seasons. I'm just going to go read the manga because no one has ever said to me, "Hey, the Berserk anime, the Berserk 2016 anime is like, it's not a good animation, but at least you can enjoy the content." Everyone just says it's butt, right? Yeah. So I'm just like, okay, fine. I'm just going to go read the manga instead.
The thing about it is that he has been drawing the manga since like the 80s. It's like the longest running manga of, or it's like, maybe not the longest running, but like top 10 or something of longest running mangas of all time. And he died.
Yeah,
he died like a year or two ago, and he did have an apprentice who has gone out on record and said that, like, I know what the planned ending is. We've talked about this many times over the years. I've been soul searching and racking my brains, like, should I, shouldn't I? And eventually he reached the conclusion that, like, I want to try to finish this manga, so I'm going to continue it in his honor and try to actually write the end. So that's where we're at. So it is continuing now with his apprentice doing it, and we'll see like how that pans out, if that's going to be good or not.
Yeah. Well, I think the first volume of that is either out or is coming out soon. The of him taking it over. So
That's rad.
Yeah.
And if you read the manga, you can appreciate so much of the discourse about the boat memes. They had an entire 2 volumes or something where they're just on a boat, which is why people are talking about how Berserk is one of the most slow moving mangas of all time, where there's a stretch of 5 years or something where absolutely nothing happens in the story.
Wow.
They're just on a boat.
I'm on a boat.
Yeah. But small spoiler, how he gets out of that thing, which is kind of maybe why they didn't continue it. It's because he's saved by a character who's not in the anime. He's in the manga, and he's been introduced earlier in the manga, but he's never introduced in the anime. And he is the one who saves Guts.
I think he's introduced in the 2016 anime because I watched it with Loz and Nazeth. And Loz was like, wait, I could have sworn this character was animated and things like this. They put the belief is that he'd seen it from the 2016 adaptation, and then misremembered that it was in the original series. But damn, yeah, I'm gonna read that. Fun times.
Hey, so we had a completely different topic that we were going to talk about, but who cares, right?
I care. I actually wrote notes down.
Nice.
I was gonna say, I know Xeno's very enthusiastic about the topic, but at the same time, if you guys want to stick to discussing Berserk and Blade Runner, we can do that too.
No, I'm just pulling it up here because I've been racking my brains in the background here, trying to figure out a way to segue into this from the discussion we were having, and I'm like, that's just not happening.
Oh, actually, to be fair, I do have a segue into it. So
nice. Okay. Segue.
We're talking about sequels and things. We're talking about all this stuff. So Diablo 4, right?
Yeah.
So I've not touched it. I have no intention of touching it until a month and a half.
Same.
At the earliest it's been released. So it's not even technically released now. It's in early access right now because I think in a month's time, when they're introducing the Battle Pass system, we're going to see some nasty microtransaction stuff coming in.
I'm not touching that until I see the monetization. But also, are you kidding me? They're doing early access for a Blizzard game.
Yeah. It's absolutely stupid.
So upset as someone who actually plays early access games for what they're intended, small
indie
developers.
studios who are in need of budget. Yeah,
I am so upset about big developers just taking that.
But it's a con. It's a lie. It's not early access. It's just you've got a changed release date. If you pay more money, you get this release date. If you pay less money, you get that release date. There's a week in it. There's one week in it.
Well, for this, but I mean, there's developers now that are just we're gonna use early access to release our unfinished product, and because you motherfuckers have already paid for it, we never have to finish it, suckers.
Yeah.
Which is
No, I completely agree with you. It's I think the problem is that what's the saying? There's a saying, is it the road to hell's paved with best intentions or something like this? Everyone has really good intentions. One game that I absolutely love that's in early access is Industries of Titan, right? It's a dumb, fun god sim with very minor elements of an RTS, very tiny elements of an RTS. It's an absolute brilliant game. I love it. It's really atmospheric. The music's absolute top notch. The art style's incredible. Really, really good fun game. And that's been in early access, and it's been slowly creeping into release. They recently had their version, comparatively recently, they had their version 1 release. But they have been making their way out of early access. Whereas some games just use it as this is the beta of it. No, this isn't the beta. This is a demo. Right? What you're saying this is a beta because you just want the scapegoat of this is the incomplete game. It's no, this is the fucking complete game. You just want people to still buy it because it's crap.
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot, playing games that are like version 0 point something, 0 point something, and then eventually, like, I did that for RimWorld, and we're on to like 3 DLCs by now, I think, but I played that before it was at version 1. Factorio, all of that. Subnautica, right? Where it's like, they keep adding, and you can kind of like give them feedback as they're coming up with the game design, the story. That's what that's for, not big studios just having an excuse to take your money without ever having to fix things.
I hadn't even thought about before, but yeah, the idea of like a AAA studio putting something in early access is somewhat sickening.
Well, it's not just that, but it's also DLCs. The whole point of DLCs was to be, you started your development of your game. Say, oh god, I want to come up with an indie title. Minecraft. There you go. Brilliant game, right? Minecraft. It comes out, but they release it early because the studio is struggling financially. They release it early, so you put your money into the game in an incomplete state. They get a hot cash injection. Yeah. And then they can continue developing it, and then they will give you downloadable content that is to be delivered later. So you get the final half of the game, right? Minecraft is actually a poor example of this, because I should have gone with something like, imagine Assassin's Creed got like, I can't think of a single player story that is like, this is the first half, now we'll give you the second half later.
Darkest Dungeon?
I never played it, but I'll take your word for it.
Sure.
I mean, the thing with early access is often, it's not necessarily DLC, but it's like, what you pay for the early access should be less than what they're monetizing the game for later. It's like when I bought, I'm pretty sure when I bought RimWorld, I paid a lot less than the game is currently going for now that it's, full. But that's like, you get an incomplete game, you're asked for feedback. That's one of the things about early access as well, is right, they continually prompt you, like, can you give us some feedback? How's this working? How's that working?
Yeah, it is a way to sort of like use the customer as a beta tester, but like it's fine, because it's that's the agreement. You go into it knowing that that's like the case.
But just like the abuse of early access as a mechanism, AAA companies are, they were doing this with DLC as well, right?
Well,
there was like,
go
on.
Oh, I was going to say that, like, I was going to poke a little bit of a hole in your previous statement about what the DLC was meant to be, because if you remember, the very first DLC ever made was the horse armor in Oblivion, where you just paid money to get like a skin for your horse. So like DLC from the very start has been a cynical cash grab.
It's like we're talking about DLC as DLC, right? Because before you could download anything like that, right? We had just had expansions, because you had to make a finished game. You shipped it physically on a CD, so it had to be a finished product. You couldn't update it. And then you release expansions. That was
maybe
how
it's more fair to say that the horse armor was the first microtransaction.
Yeah.
And that's like that's one thing that still annoys me, is that we're using the word DLC synonymously for bullshit like horse armor and like the Ringed City or something, like really huge game expansions.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, because it's just like buzzword lingo. Because like I work in tech, right? The one buzzword that triggers me is the cloud. Welcome to the cloud. It is the cloud. Store your websites on the cloud. Right? What the hell's the cloud? Oh yeah, that's right. A whole F-ton of data centers with servers. Where's this
I was gonna say,
cloud?
The cloud, that's just someone else's computer.
Oh my god.
That's what the cloud is.
It really rubs me up the wrong way, because it's a complete misrepresentation of what it actually is, right? You might as well just call it the farm, right? But then you're thinking that, someone's website is going to go back behind the barn and get shot, But it does
happen.
Yeah, it's true. But it's just such a horrible misuse of the term, and that's just marketing through and through, right? It's just like, stop saying things that are just wrong. Oh, but saying elastic cloud compute is like too complicated. It sounds dumb. Let's call it EC2. How's about we just call it a server? Like, where do you get this elastic cloud compute from?
You can't get investors money for that. They won't get hyped about calling something a server.
Oh,
you need buzzwords.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, it just reminds me of the Lego movie with Unikitty going like, business. Is this working? Yes. Buzzwords. Anyway, but yeah, the reason why I wanted to segue into Diablo 4, like, to me, it just looks like Diablo 3. Right?
No, it looks like Diablo 3 that looks like Diablo 2.
I agree with you. Aesthetically, it looks like Diablo 2, but from the looks of it, it just plays like Diablo 3.
That's why I also think that people have like rose-tinted glasses, where all of the early reviews are like, ooh, did Blizzard do a good for once? Is Diablo 4 actually a new good Blizzard game? And I think that like once those like rose-tinted glasses wears off and like once you played it for a while, I think the consensus opinion is going to be like, wait a minute, this is just reskin Diablo 3. And maybe we were wrong about Diablo 3. Maybe Diablo 3 was actually good all along, but this isn't actually a new game.
But this is kind of like a part of what we wanted to talk about today, right? It's like, you know, the game design and things like that. And it's like the very first thing you should do with whatever you develop really is, you know, aside from I have a brilliant idea, you know, is figure out what do people actually want. I want to sell something to someone. What does that person want? And people are creatures of habit. More often than not, people don't actually want new. We say we do, but we're not ready for it, right? Like, we're not ready for the big change. So if you look at what people throw their money at, unfortunately, it's kind of like, oh, I know thing. I buy thing. This hits something that I'm familiar with, right? That's why memes work. It's like, I understand this reference. Ha 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 ha. It's like that. So it's not that surprising to me that it's not that different because the people are buying it.
The weirdest thing is...
Go on.
Okay. The weirdest thing is, right, it's so interesting how you say this because, you know, people not knowing what they actually want and things, because I see this all the time. People not understanding how they themselves work as an individual, right? I will mostly talk about my my work experience and things like this, but like in Warframe, right? People go on saying like, you know, oh, we want challenging content, we want hard content. Oh, it's like, you know, and then the second DE would give us something hard. It's like they go, what's it called? It's that dog meme, right? It was like, you know, the throw, no take, only throw, right? It's like, what you call it? Challenge, no hard, only challenge. I'm like, that doesn't work. But in personal experience outside of Warframe, because I don't want to spend too long on that, because I want to talk about that later. I have discovered that, you know, working with some of my some people in the past and things, they struggle to understand how they themselves are attuned to the way things work. I am a very tactile learner, right? I learn by doing stuff, right? So if I have something an objective to complete, I learn by trying things out to get myself closer and closer to the solution. There are a number of people that are audible learners, so they learn by listening, and some people are visual learners, they learn by watching, right?
That's me.
Right?
I was going to say, I think that's Nick. I am also a tactile learner.
Yeah.
I'm a visual learner. If I see someone else do something, I can replicate it.
And this is the funny thing, it's like when we get like new software, like when we started our channel, for example, at first I was like, oh, this is fun, like I figured this out, like OBS and all of that, and he's like, he hated it.
Right.
He despised it, and I'm like, let's tinker. Okay, failure, here we go, we got it, right? And he was like, he despised it, but now that he knows how to do it, he's the one that does all of it, because
yeah, you know, and it's just like, But the thing is, a lot of people don't recognize how they learn, right? People don't recognize what it is about a game that they enjoy, or, air quotes, enjoy, right? Like, there are people that will just go through the rote of doing the same thing day in, day out, because it's been ingrained as a habit, right? They don't think, I enjoy doing this. I've seen it with okay, I will segue into Warframe now. With Warframe, they introduced the whole lich system with the lich weapons, which meant you had the random chance of getting a potential weapon that you wanted, at least in the initial incarnation of the system. And I saw a lot of Warframe creators turn around and just say, like, this is ass, this is trash, fuck this is awful, so on and so forth. And I'm like, well, aren't you just enjoying playing the game? Aren't you enjoying a reason to actually play it? It's like, nah, fuck that. It's like, this isn't enjoyable. It's like, well, then don't play it. You're not tied down to play something that you don't enjoy.
Yeah, and instead they asked that the process be streamlined so that they could complete it in as short of a time period as possible. Mm-hmm. So it's like so that they have less time that they actually have to play the game.
Yeah, very much so. But there is the opposite side of the coin on this, and that is the user experience. And this is basically what the topic is that I wanted to discuss, was user experience. With user experience in Diablo 4 being exactly the same as Diablo 3 ? With Warframe's user experience being tailored mostly by the community.
Yeah, just before we go into the depth of this, I think for the benefit of our listeners that maybe aren't in the tech business or something, quick explanation of what user experience is and how it's different from user interface as well, because those are used interchangeably a lot, but one of them is a part of the other, but user experience is a bit bigger.
Yeah. No. So the big thing with user experience is it is how you are experiencing the product. So, for example, Microsoft Word. A lot of people have had experience with Microsoft Word. I think that we can cover the majority of people that are listening to this. How often has Microsoft Word just crashed and lost all your work? Right? For me, it's certainly a non-zero number of times, especially during the course of my university degree, right?
I was going to say, how often has that happened in the last 10 years?
I don't use Word anymore. I stopped using Word.
I do all the time, actually. It's improved.
Yeah, okay, it's quite stable nowadays.
I'm very happy with it nowadays.
Okay, maybe it's maybe I could just say Sony Vegas, but there's like no one's gonna understand that one. Like, video editing software, Adobe Premiere. There you go. Right. This is right. So anyone that is in the know, Adobe Premiere is quote unquote the industry standard. It is not the industry standard. It hasn't been for years, right? But people believe that Adobe Premiere is the industry standard for video editing. If you ask any video editor, they will turn around and just complain about it, right? Because, it only uses one thread on my processor. So I got 24 threads on my processor. It uses one to do the rendering. So it takes days, right? Or it just crashes mid-rendering, or it crashes mid editing, or it's like, and this is part of the user experience, right? I'm playing a game, it just crashes, right? I'm playing Diablo 3, I get error code 37 because I can't connect to the servers because it's always online, right? This is all.
Yeah, I think that the summary is like user experience means like how you as a person interact with the product, and that includes everything from how easy it is to buy it.
Yes.
To logging in. Or it's like, this bullshit updates every single time I start it, for example. That's part of your user experience, right? I have to, a video game example for me, fucking Ubisoft games. I have them in my Steam library. I click play, and the next thing that happens is the goddamn Ubisoft launcher opening up, and then I have to log into another thing, right? And that is a negative user experience that I have with that.
Yeah.
Just as a quick,
My biggest one right now, and it's gonna sound dumb, okay? I play a lot of Candy Crush as a way of going to sleep. Okay, it's a way for me to like shut my brain off. Specifically, Candy Crush Soda Saga, which is like one of the Candy Crush games. And that game has experienced like extreme feature bloat in the past couple of years. That is manifesting itself as things you have to click away when you start the game, every time you start the game. So you start the game and it pops up like, here's your friends that you could send lives to. Do you want to send some lives to your friends? Sure, I click the send button. And then it's like, here is this week's challenge. Here is what you're currently like in the standings. Okay, I click it away. Here is this week's side objective with this little mini game you can play. Okay, I click that away. Here is, if you collect extra stars, then you're gonna get you're gonna save the teddy bear and you're gonna get another little bonus or whatever. Here's this unskippable animation for like 15 seconds that you have to wait, and then you click it away. And it takes like 15 minutes or so before you actually get to start playing the game. And I have to go through this every night as I boot up the game.
Yeah, I mean, a common user experience about mobile games is they all suck, right? I would love it if mobile games didn't suck. I can't think of a single good one, right?
Marble Snap.
I can't think of a single good one. But talking about Warframe, right? So I have a big bugbear with games as a service, right? Because
you have a what?
Bugbear is an idiom. I have a problem with games as a service, right? Games as a service are all about the present. They are never thought of the past or the future, right? To an extent, this is okay. To an extent. The problem is when your game is 10 years old and you effectively, as a new player starting the game, have to go through 10 years worth of content in order to actually get to where your friends are. And realistically, when designing a lot of this stuff, I feel that it needs to be designed more modularly, right?
There we go.
So with more modularity. And it also needs to be designed with future-proofing. So right now, people will say something like Warframe has a lot of content islands. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is it does have a lot of content islands. But at no point in time do these content islands coalesce so that you don't have to do them all independently. One of the good things about World of Warcraft's most recent changes Battle for I can't remember if it was Battle for Azeroth or if it was Shadowlands, but they basically made it so that you could pick and choose which expansion to level from 1 to 50 in. And you didn't have to go through the whole lot in order to actually get to the top level, which was a problem. Before you started a new character, you'd have to do the vanilla expansion, then Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, so on and so forth. It would just, the queue got longer and longer as time went on. And realistically, I would like it if games as a service realistically turn around and say, right, okay, so we have this concept now in the present, but what about the future? How will this be experienced for newer players in the future? We're talking like a year, we're talking 2 years, however many months or years down the line. But are they going to have to go through the same thing our present players are going to have to go through?
How do you feel about Destiny's solution to this? Because a lot of people think it's the worst possible solution to the problem. That's sundowning, where you're actively retiring old content so it no longer exists in the game. Obviously, Warframe is a free-to-play game. Destiny's not. Destiny is it's a paid game, and you have to pay for expansions as well. And then and then it's like, oh, guess what? This thing you paid for, it no longer exists.
Wow.
So, sunsetting is the other term.
Oh yeah, sunsetting. Sorry, not sundowning. Sundowning is an Alzheimer's thing.
Yeah. So sunsetting, it's in my line of work, it's an inevitability. It is not something I agree with in terms of a paid for product. But it is an issue with games as a service. Realistically, I feel games as a service maybe should exclusively be a free to play model, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Then there's no love lost when it's like, oh yeah, we've had to take this thing away. I bought Destiny 2 when it was first coming out. I regretted it massively. God, I wish I could have cancelled my pre-order, but I bought it through Battle.net, and there's no refund policy whatsoever for that.
Part of user experience, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you know, for a 6-hour campaign, right? I was just, you know, for like, was it 60 quid for 6 hours of a campaign? I was just like, what the hell is this? This is awful. Only to then find out that a few years down the line, they were getting rid of that campaign entirely. They were sunsetting some of the environments that you could go to. I was like, why? You know, a large part of me is against it, but with a story-driven narrative, I feel that with games as a service, story-driven narratives have no place there. I feel that it should be event-driven. So, like, you know, you turn up to the World of Warcraft, and this is the current state of the game, right? You know, so for those who don't know, in World of Warcraft, you had the vanilla expansion, or the first state of the game. But 3 expansions later, right, you had the World of Warcraft Cataclysm, where they rebuilt the entirety of the vanilla experience, right? So they changed the zones, they updated the models, so on and so forth. So it was a better experience, but you can never go back and experience it pre-Cataclysm, right?
Until they released vanilla and charged you for everything again.
Touche, right? But yeah, no, it's that was such a money grabbing move. But anyway, yeah, so but the whole point is, I feel that games as a service should be an event driven experience. If you're not there for the event, then you miss out. Yes, it could be recorded in the archive historium, or some the Lavarian, if you're a Warframe player. But the whole point is that, it's event driven. If you missed out on the new war, then, you weren't there at the time. You can read about it, you can watch videos about it, but the problem...
I'm going to throw this out just very quickly from what you're describing. This is... I just realized this right now, but this is the Warhammer game I want. If they make some sort of event-driven Warhammer 40k games as a service game, I think that would be my ultimate game. I think that would probably be the only game I play for the rest of my life.
But do you know what I've realized just as I was listening to Xeno talking about all of this, and it's like why video game companies do this, like what the big problem with all of that is?
Go on.
We are.
The players?
We are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I work in, I don't want to dox myself, but I work in product development.
Mm-hmm.
And as such, I work a lot together with our marketing guys, but I work in a very specific industry. Our customers have very specific ideas of what they need and what they don't need, what they want, what they don't want. And it's like, you have to make the product that they want to buy, otherwise they're not going to buy it. And the problem is video game companies, they make all of these products, like say World of Warcraft or all of this, and people buy it. They complain about it and they consume it and they do it, and it's not a necessity. It's not like, oh my god, butter is way too expensive nowadays, but you still need butter or bread or whatever. It's like, you don't need video games, but you buy them anyway. Like, people are throwing their money at it. At World of Warcraft still, which is at this point, it's about to turn 20 years old soon, I think. I remember playing it as a 16-year-old, and I am 37 now. So a 20-year-old MMO, and they're just, you have to pay for the game, you have to pay for every expansion, you have to pay them monthly, and then they're like, oh, you yearn for the olden days, well, here, you get to start again at the very start, and people are like, yeah, take my money, here you go. And it's like, why would they do anything differently if it's working?
You know what's funny about that one is that when there was pushback in Blizzard for releasing Diablo Vanilla, there were higher-ups in the company who were like, and this is basically a direct quote, where they were like, we heard people talking about how much they want to relive the the World of Warcraft Vanilla experience. We think this is like a small minority. We think this doesn't actually have any sort of appeal. They basically said, you think you want that, but you don't.
But then they didn't do their market research because people had like private servers with vanilla up, and there were people playing it everywhere. Like people were already doing it. It's just not in an official capacity.
But it's still a case where like it's actually the user base that's more cynical than the cynical, greedy capitalist company itself. Yeah. They would have done vanilla World of Warcraft a long time ago if they had believed that it would have made money. It's just that for some reason they thought that it wouldn't, which was like completely off. They were super wrong about that.
I can appreciate it to an extent though, because like getting that version, the vanilla experience of World of Warcraft, to run on newer hardware, newer operating systems and things like that, I can easily see being problematic. Not to go into too much detail, but I'm responsible for the servers at my company, and if we have some websites that are like 10 years old, built on frameworks that are 10 years old, that have been out of service for 10 years. And we have all this stuff, and like I have to keep the lights on. I have to keep the damn things running. The number of times the thing breaks is just like, it's incredible. And like you don't. Why don't you just get I explained this to them before. It's like you've effectively got a jalopy from the 1960s. The engine has fallen out at this point. I am telling you, it is cheaper to get a new car. Right? And you're telling me to somehow duct tape the engine back in, right? At this point in time, the engine has fallen out. I can't get the engine back in. You need a new car, right? I can't get this to work anymore, right?
Yeah. I'm familiar. We have customers that still run all of their stuff in Windows XP, and it is such a headache, right? That as you're developing a new product, a new software, fancy everything, and it's like you have to make sure it's compatible with Windows XP.
Yeah, I have a worse one. I was at I'm a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I spent some time working at a private law firm.
Yeah.
And those guys were so fucking cheap.
Yeah.
Okay. That they were running their computers on Windows 2000.
Oh, fucking.
Because they used a billing system, or like a software for billing, where there was still some sort of freeware version that would run on Windows 2000, and they didn't want to pay the money for like buying an actual professional sort of like billing software.
But the thing is, at that point, you're probably spending more money on finding things that still work on your operating system for other things than you would by just upgrading.
Yeah, but they were just nickeling and diming everything. But that's my user experience.
Okay. We have one client, right, that is paying 11 grand a month for their web hosting because they don't want to upgrade it. I'm like, you realize you'd save a lot of money if we migrated it. It's like, yeah, but the bill you've given us is like, 100 grand. It's like, yeah, but in 10 months, you would have spent that anyway, right? It's like, you've left it like this for years, so you would have fucking made bank if you'd just let us do the work for you. But anyway.
Yeah, but it's a hassle, and you may have to. I mean, this is the thing, right? In problem solving, which is something I'm good at, right? Troubleshooting, like figuring out a problem. But a lot of people with solutions feel like you have to have 100% solution. I have this huge problem, and you come with a solution that fixes 99% of it, but you're like, but I need that 1% fix, and I am not going to implement it until I get that. And so you'd rather sit there with your huge fucking problem and get nothing done than have the solution that fixes most of it because it's not perfect.
Anna is now
very common thing.
Anna is now also revealing why the US is never going to fix its gun problem. because that is the attitude everyone has over there.
This is very human, kind of, right? And if you have too many people in charge of a company that are like this, because that's kind of like company culture as well that plays into it, right? If you have too many people in charge who are like that as a person, that's how you get situations like what Xeno just described.
Yeah. A big problem, I think, in not only corporations, but also consumers, especially consumers, dear God, is if they have a problem, right? They think they know what the solution is, right? And I got a brilliant example for this. And they turn around and they say, like, you need to implement this solution, right? Okay, but what was the problem, right? It's like, no, we need you to implement this solution right now. If we understand the problem, we could, as the experts, as the people that make the thing, we could probably tell you an even better solution, right? So I give you an example. I used to work on a piece of educational software for a company that I'm not going to name because otherwise I could get in trouble. But regardless of that, it was an educational piece of software, and the idea is that it took analytical data of children, as they were going through their education at a very young age, right? Now, you could monitor the child's progress as they were performing the different tasks and things. You would take note of like how well they are doing this task. Like how well are they understanding what 2 + 2 is? Right? How well are they understanding to kick a football? Right? Things like this. And a teacher, because it was a bit subjective, a teacher could mark whether or not they were performing above average, or below average, right? And this was a tool that was to help teachers understand and identify people with learning difficulties, like myself, and so that they could get spotted earlier and get the assistance that they would need at an earlier age, right? So they don't have to go through half the difficulties that I did, right? But they had a graph. Now, do you know what a scatter graph is?
I don't.
Okay, a scatter graph is just like an XY graph, right? So, along the x-axis was time. So it was like the years of the kid being in education. And the y-axis is the performance of those different skills and things. Like, gets punched through a formula, and then an output comes out, and then you can see where your kids land as an individual, right? So how well they will actually do and things. And the idea was that on a one-to-one, vector, thank you. Yeah, on a one-to-one vector, you could actually see whether or not a child was doing above average or average and below, right? So if you're above the line, you are doing better than the average. And if you're below the line, you're either doing the same as everyone else or below the same as everyone else, right? Now, the problem with that was that there was one line and it was confusing the users. So the client turned around and said, like, hey, we want you to put a message on top of this graph, at the top of the graph, saying, like, effectively, this graph is useless. Don't rely on it, right? that was their solution.
Sorry, Maybe I missed this. Who was the user of this graph? Was it parents or teachers?
Teachers were the user of the graph.
And they don't know how to read a graph that has like, did it have like a confidence interval? Like maybe this is the scientist in me talking, but
Well, yes, it is the scientist
the
in you.
line
It's
line confuses people.
No. The fact is that you have the line. Everyone above the line was one category, but everyone below the line was one of two categories. But distinguishing which one they were was extremely difficult. Realistic.
Okay, because they didn't have a confidence interval for that.
Yes. So what we turned around and so they wanted so the client who basically interacted with the teachers, I built the thing. They turned around and the client said, I want a label at the top of the graph that said, this graph is effectively useless. Don't rely on it, right? And I turned around and said, you can't say that because then that invalidates the rest of your service. It basically brings the thought into question, the subconscious thought of like, is this something I can rely on, right? So I turned around. I said, so what is the problem? So they explained the problem to me. I said, right, give me an hour, right? I went away. I came back, and all I did was I drew a second line, right? So it was a 1 on the X and 3/4 on the Y, right? So it's like, so it was a different angle. And so everyone that was in the top part was above average. Everyone that was between the two lines was on average, and everyone below the second line was below average, right?
Because I was going to say that graph sounded like you said they wanted a graph that identifies below average students, but actually what they had was a graph that identified above average students.
Yes. So they wanted to be able to identify all three categories, but they only had one that could identify above average. Yeah. So I showed them this, and they were like mind blown, and they're like, "Oh, this is genius!" Fucking second line.
He's a magician. Burn him at the stake.
Pretty much, right? And so I did this, and they fucking loved it. And it's just like, but this is the problem. People don't present their problems. Consumers don't present the problems. They present solutions. And these solutions are often, that's not the solution you want. For example, a 4th player house. You don't need a 4th one, Warframe community.
This is Xeno's current gripe about Warframe, one of the big ones, about like how people are just wanting more and more player housing. Arguably, he thinks it's related to like Final Fantasy XIV and the scarcity of player housing there, and how that's migrated over to other games.
Yeah.
So now in Warframe we have the Orbiter that we can decorate. We have the dojo we can decorate. We have the Drifter camp we can decorate. We have the dorm zone we can decorate. And people like, I don't care about any of these. I put my decorations in my Orbiter, and all the other sort of like housing stuff is like, why would I ever interact with this?
I think that's where you have to hit the right balance, right? Because I think like the theory of like getting like good voice of customer, right? Like interacting with your prospective customers, to ask them, you never should ask, what do you want? Would you want this, or would you rather want this? You should never ask these questions, because you're putting an inherent bias in that, right? And it's like, that's presenting them what you want. You should just be asking like, how do you feel about this? What's your current gripe with this, right? What frustrates you about that, so that you can yourself figure that out. You do have to hit a balance, and that kind of hits on the World of Warcraft story that we had earlier, right? With not being a too what's the right word? God, English is failing me right now. Like looking down on people, like being patronizing, and telling people you don't know what you want, because that puts you in the danger territory of like, I know better what you want than you do, which, as evidenced by the vanilla WoW story, which clearly Blizzard didn't know better what people wanted than what they wanted, right? Is also not always correct. But you kind of have to be able to take a step back from things and look at, what do I think people want? What am I hearing from people? But not in the sense of like a Santa's wish list, It's more like, how do you feel? What's your frustration? What is making you upset when you play the game? What is missing? And take all of that into one.
One of the biggest issues I have with I'm gonna turn this into software is YouTube, right? The YouTube recommended feed is ass. It is the biggest bloated pile of ass in existence. For the one simple reason, it only promotes what is popular, right? So if it's popular, it becomes more popular. If it is, so if it's less popular, no one's gonna hear about it. No one's gonna know it even exists. And this is the biggest issue I have with YouTube. So one of my biggest bugbears is the YouTube recommended page, right? The problem is whatever's popular will just remain popular. None of it. There is no opportunity for any new and upcomers to actually grow, right? It's just like, oh, this is popular according to millions of people, so we'll just continue to pump this in front of people's faces. It is insane how the YouTube subscriptions page hasn't been updated in I don't know how many years. You can go to the the /r YouTube subforum on Reddit, and it's always the same story. People are just getting more and more frustrated with the recommended page on YouTube than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also like very, very highly based on like what you watched previously. For example, even among your own like subscriptions, YouTube is only ever going to recommend you the last 20 channels that you watched. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why like people are so obsessed with consistency on YouTube and putting out new content like daily or weekly. Because if you go too long without people watching you, then you are simply going to disappear from their recommended pages. YouTube is just going to stop recommending your videos to them.
Which is sad because it disincentivizes. Is that a word? Oh my god.
Disincentivizes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disincentivizes people from making actually good quality thought out content, and it just kind of pushes like nonsense.
Yeah. It's about quantity, not quality. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that.
It's so weird because it's so antithetical. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I don't
know what you're trying to say.
Antithetical. I think that's a word, yeah.
An antithesis. Because YouTube has been trying to move away from that and focusing more on quality rather than quantity, because it used to recommend content primarily based on views. Views was the prime metric for YouTube's algorithm to determine if a video was good or not. But they've changed that recently, so now the prime metric is watch time. So the longer people watch a video before they turn it off, the better YouTube's algorithm considers that video to be, which is it's a pretty good metric because it gives, it makes the algorithm recommend videos that people actually watch, not just click on, but actually watch. But then they still have that stupid thing of like, we're only going to recommend you the last 20 channels you watched or whatever. So channels that just pump out content still get prioritized over channels that take their time to put out like a couple of videos that happen to be like very good. Sad.
It's massively sad. I mean, like, I can't remember who. I don't know if it was Eunuch who were talking about like someone on YouTube that would just turn a Twitter message into a 10-minute video. And it's just like, what are you doing? What are you like? And it makes it very difficult because like, so I'm not going to go into any detail whatsoever, But I'm starting a new project, and it's going to be a slow project. There's no scheduling, there's no haste, there's no nothing. But it's we want it to be quality, right? And that's it. So like, it's not going to come out on the weekly. It might not even come out on the monthly. I hope it comes out on the yearly at least. But like, so that project is doomed to suffer regardless because of YouTube's shitty monetization of the algorithm. This is why word of mouth means so much more to advertising a product. If word of mouth carries something well enough, like, you know, if Nick, Loz, or Nazith recommend to me Berserk, fine, I'll go ahead and I'll watch it / read it and things. But if I just get adverts for oh god, Diablo 4, right? Thus far, I have not heard a single person in my friendship circle. I've heard influencers rant and rave about Diablo 4, but they can be bought, right? And, you know, like, unless someone in my friendship circle says, yep, Diablo 4 is actually worth the money, I'm not even going to give it a look, right? And that can be said about a lot of this stuff. YouTube's recommended page is anti word of mouth, right? So you can't grow a fledgling channel unless you're already big. You can't grow bigger, and I hate that. It means that people don't have the opportunity to grow, and the only real way people can grow is become friends with other content creators and just share communities.
Kinda. I don't know. That might be, you know what? That might be its own discussion topic. we can bring you back to just talk about just what it's like trying to be a not struggling, but what it's like to be a fledgling content creator or mid-sized content creator or whatever in this landscape. Could be its own topic. Yeah, no, I just kind of want to go back to something we talked about before, and then we switched subjects before I got time to throw this in. When you were talking about how people are only good at offering solutions rather than presenting
just tell us
problems.
your problem.
Yeah. This is, you know, that meme of like The Simpsons already did it. No matter what sort of idea you can have, The Simpsons already did it. Yeah. The Simpsons actually lampooned this pretty brilliantly in the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show.
Yeah.
Which is how they created Poochie the dog as a result of this, because the premise of the show is that Itchy and Scratchy is getting like lower ratings, and they're trying to figure out how to save the show. So they bring in this like focus group of the kids who get to like answer what they would want the show to be.
God, yeah.
And they're like, how many of you would want Itchy and Scratchy to deal with real life problems like the ones you face every day? And I was like, me, I would want to watch that. Yeah, me. It's like, and who would want to see them do just the opposite, getting into far out situations involving robots and magic powers? And everyone again is like, me, I want that too.
Yeah.
It's like, so you want a realistic, down to earth show that's completely off the wall and swarming with magic robots. And it's like, and also you should win the things by watching.
Yes.
So. And that's how we ended up with Poochie, the character, as a result of that. And it's like you were talking about, like, we've talked about this before, how Warframe listened too much to the community, and the community is so scattered and doesn't know what it wants. And that's how we sort of end up with them trying to create the real life, down to earth game that also has magical robots.
I was so engrossed in your second episode, talking about difficulty and everything. I've got to say, I really admire From Software for basically flipping everyone the bird, when it comes to
we have our vision.
Yeah, that's it. It's our vision. You could either like it or lump it, you know.
And I think that's one of the hardest things to get through at work, right? If you're developing something, and there's often like you have that one user in Mozambique who uses the thing like that, right? And then it's like it's so hard to get through to leadership of a company and everything to say no, we're not doing that. And they're like, but that one person is doing it, and you have to say like, doesn't make sense to listen to that one person. So unfortunate for them, but screw them.
Well, this is one of my biggest bugbears of Bethesda, right?
That's going to be the title of this episode. It's going to be Xeno's biggest bugbear.
Xeno's bugbears.
I wouldn't, but like, I hate this about Bethesda. I really do, because Bethesda will always release half a product, right? I think the wool was finally removed from people's eyes with Fallout 76, right? They will always release half a product, or in that case, an eighth of a product.
Yeah.
They'll expect the community to fix it for them. And the worst thing is, they bump the price up, right? They redefine the new benchmark for video game pricing, right? I remember when video games used to be £30 for a complete title. And then it went up to £45 because Bethesda released Skyrim at fucking £45. And then other games started doing it. When one game can pull it off, and it's always a fucking Bethesda game, whenever one game pulls it off, then the rest of them follow suit.
And Nintendo.
Yes,
consoles.
actually, you're right. Yeah, Zelda's another franchise that does that as well. You know.
Yeah, the pricing on the Switch is goddamn insane, especially considered like how much weaker of a software platform the Switch is. But yeah, Nintendo are like shameless with their pricing.
Yeah, and well, to be fair, I kind of feel that Nintendo are in part deserving of it, because at
least they put out games that work.
Yeah, like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Except for Pokemon.
You're right. You're bloody right. Right? And that, again, I hate it. It's like, oh, year's out, gotta ship it. Like, but it's not finish it. No, ship it.
It's a piece of shit. But it's a piece of shit.
I hate the fact that in the first day, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sold more than God of War Ragnarok did in 3 weeks. I hate that.
Pokemon is the most valuable trademark in the world.
Well, that also hits another issue. I think it's like God of War Ragnarok is mostly bought by people for themselves.
Yeah,
and so they look into, what do I want for it? Who are a lot of the people that buy Pokemon games? Parents for their kids. So that means they don't actually have the same interaction with the product and the whole bugginess and all of that, right? It's not the same, unfortunately.
Yeah. You know, but again, it's I think it's because kids are prepared to tolerate more, that, you know, companies can get away with more. But
they don't know any better.
Well, yeah,
it's like, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, they're not taught how to appreciate the value of things, and you know, I like my friends joke about this, but it's true. So I do this all the time. It's like, I could buy this game for £10, or I could buy 3 packets of sandwiches and be fed for 3 meals, right? I could buy this game for £30 and buy 10 packets of sandwiches and be fed for 10 meals. I like to actually weigh things against food, because it's like, well, I could either do this and it impact my food bill, or I could eat and live, right?
This worked so much better before the massive inflation, and all of a sudden eating and living is so ridiculously expensive.
Oh my God.
It's
but
like I could buy Skyrim or eat for a day.
Yeah.
I actually compare it in a way that gives like a different outcome, whereas like I compare it to other sort of like luxury items or entertainment expenditures. Whereas like I can buy this video game that will give me entertainment for like half a year, or I can have like one night out with my friends. And it's basically the same cost. I can spend like 40, 50, 60 quid out on a night. I can do that.
But that's
Like-
because Swedish nanny state makes alcohol so expensive.
That's true.
Like one thing I'm like, my friends like, oh, should we go out and do something? No. What do you mean no? Because cost of living is so damn expensive at the moment. Just going somewhere costs a metric fuck ton, let alone doing something at that place we go to, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to go. Oh, you never go out. I was like, yeah, I'm fine with that. I have my giant Weep collection behind me. No one can see this on the screen, unfortunately. I got my giant plastic crack collection behind me. They're not Funko Pops. I got my video games. I got my couch.
I don't need friends. I've got my Rias Gremory statue.
Exactly, right? But I mean, that's
I don't need a girlfriend. I've got my life-size Tifa doing the Jacko pose statue to keep me company. So you're thinking about it.
Oh,
you're thinking
my God.
long and hard about it. Because that statue
This is-
exists, and it is exquisite.
Is it life size?
It's not life-size, but it's not fucking far away. It's like half a meter tall or something. It's huge.
I struggle to see the point of half life-sized. Either you have a miniature that you can put on a shelf, or you make it like life-sized, right? But who wants like a dwarf version outside of people with hypopituitary dwarfism?
Oh, we're going there?
Oh, wow.
Who?
Anna, every single episode, Anna is trying to get us cancelled somehow.
No, I'm not. I want to be very, very respectful
Okay.
of people with hypopituitary dwarfism who deserve their life-sized statues, but I'm just imagining that it is a much, and I'm trying. How do I say that? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. It is a much smaller market than.
Oh my
I can
God.
appreciate the value of having a half scale model, right? A half
Yeah, you still
scale
get more
statue.
detail, right?
No, it's not just that, right? The other
But
side of
where
it
do
is
you
how.
put it?
That's the important part. You can have like special displays that can accommodate a half size. Whereas if you're thinking a full size, you couldn't put that on the display to save your life, right? You can't just go to IKEA and buy, oh, this is a full size person body stand, right? Like, oh, what's the weight you're putting on it? Oh, I'm putting on it like, I don't know, 200 kilos. Yeah, that's going to break that, right? Okay. But with a half size, you can at least go buy a IKEA. I don't know any of the furniture in IKEA apart from the Billy shelves that I got behind me.
How dare you? You're talking to two people in Sweden. You have to know their entire catalog.
Oh, I'm sorry, but anyway, so you could
You
buy
buy the Fjolträsk desk.
no, not a desk. I'm just saying, like, you could get like that small table that's like really solidly built, and you can use that as a stand. Right? Sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
There you go. We're keeping
Hay
that
fever.
in.
Super
Yeah.
hay fever. But the whole point is you can buy the furniture quite easily to support something that is half size, right? I don't think you can do that for full size. I mean, I've seen full size
enough.
statues of characters from like Berserk or Wolverine or someone from One Piece. And it's just like, how do you have the living space to accommodate something so massive?
Okay, but would you rather have a half-sized gut with the half-sized sword, or do you want like a life-sized gut with a life-sized sword?
I want
You
a
can't
size.
have
Go on.
You can't put the Dragon Slayer in your apartment. You can't.
Isn't
You're,
it like-
you're breaking laws. You can't own, because in life-size guts, that means you just have that's just a life-size sword,
Isn't it a 9-foot sword or something?
pretty much.
So
Genuinely would not fit in my apartment, right? I cannot fit that in my. It's what's called. I mean, I got like a 2-meter ceiling, but I've got sloped. I got a sloped roof, right? I live in a loft apartment and things. So like, I literally would have to have it in the middle of the corridor, and then it's just like that's it.
Now,
there's no
teenage
law
me-
that says you can't have swords.
Yes, there is super is a law
live
that says you
blades in the
can't have
UK.
swords.
Yeah, you can't have a live
There's-
blade.
No, you can't have swords, which is sad because like
Do-
weeb teenage me found like this online site that sold like replica swords from animes and stuff, and like I genuinely wanted to have like a life-size Buster sword from Final Fantasy
Wait,
VII.
there are laws that says you can't have swords because
Yes.
it's like in Austria. Like, do you remember like the Christmas market at the Heeresgeschichtliche Museum?
Yes, but
the-
this is Sweden, nanny state. I mean, you can't have swords.
Okay,
Super not legal.
but that is a Swedish thing. Then.
So,
don't know.
so you can
But
have.
then how is your cousin allowed to have like
He's not.
17th
He's
century?
not.
How is
He almost
Mm.
he went out on he had like flintlock muskets because he does like larping and like live action recreation things, and they were out on New Year's Eve and firing flintlock muskets from their balcony, and the
Oh,
cops
dear
came,
God.
and it was a whole big thing because you're super not allowed to have that.
But I thought you weren't allowed to shoot them, but having them.
So I know in a lot of countries like the UK, you can't have so you can have like a replica, if you want to. Yeah, you can have a replica, but it has to be easily identifiable as a replica. But not only that, it
Can't have a
can't.
sharpened sword then.
Yeah, you can't have a sharpened sword. You can't have a usable gun. That's why what's called BB guns and things like that. They have to be reshaped in such a way that if you try to put a normal bullet through it, it will shatter the gun. Right. So again, like you can't have like a firing pin mechanism. That's why 3D printers are such a problem, is because you can basically make a plastic gun and then with a 3D printer.
That makes sense. All right, Xeno, our baby is waking up, which means that we have hit our allotted time for being able to record anything at all. She dictates our lives now, and now we are at the end of our rope. So, do you want to plug your stuff? Tell our viewers, where can you find Xenogelion on the internet?
You can find me at youtube.com/Xenogelion, XENOGELION, which I'm hoping is going to be on the screen.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter, same handle, and you can find the anime pod. You can find me on the anime podcast, youtube.com/KanpaiCast. We do episodes daily. We also do the news, and your baby is adorable. Like, oh my god!
She's on. Yeah, Xeno can see her on camera. I know.
She is
Star
very
of the
cute.
show.
She is a beautiful one. Gorgeous. We might put up like a picture on camera so people can see like
No,
no,
we're not.
We're not gonna be whoring out our baby for views. What kind
Too
of
adorable.
content creator parents are we? If we're not whoring out our baby for views.
Good ones. Yes,
Sacred treasure.
yes. We're not putting our child on the internet. Well, Xeno, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thanks for inviting me.
And I guess we'll just
Leave it there.
We'll probably have you back on again in the future. Because why the hell not?
I'd love to be back on. This was fun. This was great.
Yeah, it's like no format or anything. You just talk.
Just ramble.
Yeah.
And you hope you actually ever find your way to the topic you agreed on before. Sometimes it doesn't work.